Okay, so in the last tutorials we discussed about the servlets and how the servlet technology can be used to generate the dynamic web content or the dynamic web pages. Now in these tutorials we will be studying about the next technology used to generate the dynamic web content, that is JSP. So let's start that. JSP stands for JavaServer Pages. So let's first revise what actually we did in the servlet. Let's run our application and check out how it works when we are generating it using servlet technology. See, so we get this HTML form, which is nothing but a login.html. Here you can see in the login.html we have created a username and a password. Post method is there, submit form, and action is welcome. And this action welcome is nothing but the URL that will be created when we'll be submitting the form, and this URL will be mapped to a servlet inside the web.xml. So in web.xml, this login.html is a default page welcome file which we want to display, and for welcome URL pattern we want the servlet name login to be called, and the servlet name login was mapped to com.telcomma.servlet servlet underscore class. So here inside this we have this servlet class, and when this servlet class is invoked we call the service method. Init method is just called once when this servlet will be objects will be created. After that it will be called, and this service method will be called for each request. So here it comes, it gets the username value from the HTML form, gets a writer object which will be used to display the response or send back the HTML response back to the client, and here we are displaying the welcome user, the name we are having. That is just like a dynamic page. So flow is from login.html to web.xml to servlet. Let's see. Say this is a just basic URL path, no welcome over here. Now I'll be so I'll be submitting the form. I get the welcome URL. This welcome URL was mapped to a servlet. This URL is mapped to this servlet, so it goes to this servlet, and inside this servlet I am displaying the HTML responses h1 welcome user Ritika. Clear? So you can write in this out.println, you can write the entire HTML code, the complex ones also, like HTML head, title and all. So you can write this, and entire HTML form will be displayed to the client or the user. Okay, so this is what the servlet was. Now let's discuss about the JSP. We saw one thing in servlet, that here inside the Java code only we are writing our HTML code. So basically HTML is embedded inside the Java. So here 95% of will be Java and 5% will be HTML code. So the web programmers need to have knowledge of both the presentation tier as well as the business tier. The programmer, the developer needs to have it, because otherwise we have a UI component is different. Presentation tier is done by some other person who is a web designer, and programming is done by the person who is good at business logic. But in the servlet he needs to take care of both the things, HTML as well as the Java part. So what happened in JSP is, here the web designer take care of the presentation logic and the web programmers take care of the business logic. So both things are separated. What actually we do is, in JSP Java is embedded inside HTML page. Means the web designer, he will create a HTML page, whatever the components you want to add. After that, that HTML page will be given to a programmer or a developer, and that developer will embed his or her own Java logic inside that HTML page. Is it clear? So this is how the JSP works. Now you must be wondering, when the HTML page is created, we'll having HTML tags, HTML head, title, body, form, input type, and all those tags will be there. But how will we differentiate between the Java logic from these HTML tags? For that, we have special JSP tags which are used to differentiate between the HTML part and the Java part. No doubt, here also the web programmer needs to have some knowledge of the JSP tags, but as compared to servlet, it will be much easier, because there inside Java the HTML is bit tough, but here inside just you have to mention the tag and then just normal Java code you have to write it. So still that is much better as compared to the servlet. We'll see it when we'll be creating the first JSP page. Now before discussing that, let's discuss the life cycle of JSP. As we discussed in the life cycle of servlet, that how servlet is done. First, servlet is compiled. The .java class of is servlet is compiled and we get a .class file. Then the servlet is instantiated by the web container. We don't instantiate a servlet. Web container will automatically instantiate a servlet and an object is being made. After that, initialization is done by calling the init method on it. After that, for each user request, we call the service method. Request instantiation is done. So for each request, a thread is created on one object only. It's not that every object is created for each request, but one object and a thread is created inside that, and a request is being handled. Finally, when all the work is over, we just destroy the servlet. In the life cycle of JSP, entire life cycle is same as that of servlet. The only part difference is the first part, that is the translation. So that is the only phase which is difference over here, translation. The most important thing you will see is even the JSP page, which is nothing but an HTML page along with some JSP tags which are used to write the Java code. This translation phase, it converts the JSP to a servlet only at the backend. So JSP becomes a servlet only at the backend. That is nothing but a .java file. Now once you get a .java file, then everything remains same. What remains same? Compilation, the first phase of servlet, remember? .java file to .class file. Instantiation. Here object is initialization. Init method is called. Now you must be wondering, this init method is of a servlet. We'll study that even JSP has the lifecycle methods which are nothing but same as that of servlet. The only difference is here we just write JSP init, JSP service, JSP destroy. Unlike servlet where we have just init, service and destroy. Init method is called. Then request handling. Service method called. These are all the things which are being happening at backend. In the interview point of view, they ask you the life cycle of say just JSP and the servlets. Destroy method called finally when everything is over. So the only phase which is different is translation phase, the converting of the JSP to a servlet. And who does this job for us? Nothing but JSP translator, which is already present in our web container. Like we have a servlet container, web container, so they take care of this object creation, even the conversion of servlet JSP to servlet. Now I'll explain you how it is being converted. So let's create first JSP page. Now here we'll be not mapping this action to a URL, or you can say a servlet. Well, basically this welcome is URL which is internal to servlet. Directly we will be giving in this action the JSP page. Now the request not need to be handled by the servlet but by the JSP. Clear? So let me create the same welcome.jsp only. JSP is very simple. It's nothing but an HTML file only. When you go to JSP file, it just has the extension. Welcome.jsp. Next, finish. It JSP is HTML markup. You can see it. It's entire HTML only. There is nothing different. Only thing you can see the difference over here is the top line. That is a part of JSP, which will be covering in our JSP tags. So this percentage at the rate, all these are JSP tags. Clear? You can write a normal HTML content, whatever you want to write, like head1, welcome, user, it's JSP page. So now this will not go to the servlet, but I will be doing it to welcome.jsp. The only change I have to do is there. So for this now in web.xml, no mapping is required because in the backend it automatically has to convert it. So this is not needed. Even that Java class is not needed, but I'm just keeping it as it is for the time being. Clear? Nothing is needed. So now you see that this is being shown.